Discovering My Hidden Legacy, the incredibly touching moment that transformed their lives forever. Sarah dug through the layers of dust in her late grandmother's attic, a place sealed off from the world for too long. Each box she sifted through felt heavy with weight, not just the physical mass, but the legacy trapped within. When her fingers brushed against a weathered trunk, curiosity sparked deeper than the burgeoning silence. She pried it open, revealing a trove of letters and faded photographs, evidence of a time when her grandmother's bakery thrived like an unlit candle waiting for a spark. With every letter she read, Sarah felt a pang of yearning, a longing to recreate not just the recipes, but the magic her grandmother once shared with their small town. As a waitress and part-time janitor, her life revolved around exhausting routines and worrying over bills. Could she revive the bakery and weave back a sense of belonging into her world? The warmth of the dream flickered within her, but it was quickly doused by the cold waters of doubt. "You're just a waitress," the local bakery owner had scoffed days ago, his dismissal ringing in her ears like a relentless clock. What was she thinking? Could she even muster the confidence to challenge a titan of the town? Who was she kidding? While she cleaned tables and mopped floors, it never occurred to her that she could create something in this world, something worthy of admiration. As she lingered in the attic, her heart raced while her mind waged war. The thought of failure loomed larger than ever. She envisioned Jake's eyes, filled with disappointment, if she faltered. "He needs to see hard work pays off," she whispered to herself. But what if her efforts ended in embarrassment? Unable to escape those thoughts, she pictured his friends taunting him when news spread about her failed bakery attempt. Her breath hitched. A heavy grief settled in her chest, twisting like a vine intertwined with despair. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Desperation crept in as she pondered the possibility of the townsfolk turning their backs on her. Skepticism rang louder than support. But what if she could revive her grandmother's legacy? Was it worth risking everything to find out? Everyone expected her to be the quiet, resilient single mother, keeping her head down, just scraping by. Yet now, with the ghosts of flour dust and dough rising around her, she felt a terrifying calling to fight against the whispers that said she couldn't. Time slipped through her fingers like sand as the reopening day approached. Heart pounding with terror, Sarah stood at a crossroads. What if she made the wrong choice? What if all this became a nightmare? A flood of emotions swirled violently within her, the silence of the attic amplifying her inner turmoil. She realized her struggle was never just about the bakery. It was about showing Jake that he could aspire to dreams greater than the limitations imposed by the town. As the opening day dawned, she clenched her fists, an ember flickering against the looming shadows. Would her act be enough to unite her family's legacy, or break it forever? With the grand opening looming just hours away, Sarah barely slept the night before. Sleep had become an elusive ally, and every creak of the old house echoed her racing thoughts. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the anticipation knotting her stomach tighter. The possibility of failure gnawed at her, yet with every knee-jerk thought of doubt came a flicker of resolve that this was her moment to seize. As dawn broke, she swung her legs off the bed and stood, steadying herself against the weight of her own fears. The attic, once a repository of memories, felt like a sanctuary of inspiration. She had spent nights baking, poring over her grandmother's handwritten recipes, and perfecting each flavor. The sense of vanilla and warm chocolate had filled her kitchen, wrapping around her like a comforting embrace. Each rise of the dough mirrored her own emotional ascent. She could feel herself changing. But as the clock ticked closer to opening time, the sun dipping lower in the sky cast long shadows across her thoughts. The realization hit her that this would not only be about delivering pastries, it was about delivering a legacy. Could she make those who doubted her believe? Could she transform the narrative written about her life's limitations into a story of triumph? Her heart raced not just with fear, but with the thrill of possibility. She rushed to the bakery, her palms damp with anxiety and a touch of exhilaration. The chatty voices of the morning crowd buzzed in her ears as she pushed the heavy door open. The space felt foreign, yet oddly familiar, as if the bakery itself was urging her to take the stage. Stacks of pastries lined the glass showcases, still warm from the oven. The sweet aroma was intoxicating, and for a moment she breathed deeply, letting it wash over her apprehensions. But then the nagging thoughts returned, like a dark cloud. What if this place didn't welcome her efforts? What if the patrons came, sampled the goods, and left unimpressed? Feeling the pressure of judgment, her mind raced through every possible scenario. She opened her mouth to speak to a few early customers seated inside, but her voice caught. "Good morning. Do you have any questions?" she managed, looking more like a shy child presenting a science project than a businesswoman promoting her dreams. The customers smiled, offering polite nods in response. It was a start, but Sarah knew she must summon more than polite exchanges. As the hours ticked by, the first few sales trickled in. Each transaction felt like validation. Her fears receded just a little with every happy customer who left with a box in hand. But even amidst the temporary highs, she observed whispers and furtive glances from some locals. Murmurs of doubt swirled in corners she could not reach, and an all-too-familiar face loomed in her mind, the local bakery owner whose disdain had cut through her confidence. In a moment of clarity, Sarah recognized that this bakery wasn't just a business. It was a statement, a declaration of resilience. If she was to battle the expectations of others, she would have to embrace that very power to subvert their skepticism. The tension within her mounted, urging her to confront those who doubted her dream head-on. As the lunch hour approached and more people filled the bakery, she noticed the local bakery owner standing lingering at the storefront, casually observing. An electric intensity filled the air between them. It was as if, in that moment, they were both silently contesting for their place, a battle of legacies. Would she retreat in submission or rise to meet the challenge head-on? The answer to that question would shape not only her fate, but the bond she shared with Jake. And in that defining moment of confrontation, Sarah realized she had a choice to make, and it would be one that could either define her or free her. The time had come to face the shadows of her past and step into the light. As the lunch crowd began to ebb and flow, casting intrigued glances her way, Sarah felt an undeniable urge to redefine her presence. No longer merely a passive observer, she was determined to become the architect of her own success. With her heart pounding, she focused on the local bakery owner, a figure who had always loomed large in her mind, an ever-present reminder of her inadequacies. Sarah's hands gently gripped the edge of the counter, a grounding gesture that brought clarity amidst the chaos. She gave herself a moment's pause. Could she address the masses, break through her timid shell, and convert skepticism into support? It was time to transcend the shadow of fear that had held her captive for too long. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here today," she called out, surprising even herself with the strength of her voice. "I'm Sarah, and this bakery is fueled by more than passion. It's a tribute to my grandmother's legacy and the love put into every recipe." There was a collective hush as she began to share snippets of her journey, her countless hours of practice, her failures, and ultimately her victories. As words flowed from her, she realized she was not just sharing her story. She was inviting them into her world. Several familiar faces watched her intently, and through the warmth of their gazes, she found the confidence she had been yearning for. The whispers had faded, replaced by an unspoken camaraderie that seemed to weave a bond between her and her audience. In that moment, she saw herself not as a competitor against the local bakery owner, but as a community member, deserving of recognition and respect. But the watchful eyes of her perceived adversary tugged at her confidence like an anchor. She couldn't shake the feeling of judgment that laced the air. What if her voice trembled? What if her pastries didn't impress? Those thoughts fought fiercely against the courage she had summoned. Yet she pressed on, letting determination bathe her words in authenticity. Every pastry here is made with love, a bit of adventure and a hint of doubt turned into triumph, she continued, feeling lighter with each syllable. And I promise that each bite will reflect not only my growth, but also my commitment to this community. With each word, Sarah unveiled hidden depths within herself. Her meticulous attention to detail, her innate creativity, and her relentless dedication. She realized then that her journey wasn't just about baking. It was about crafting a space for herself in an already crowded world, redefining her identity through each pastry created. Just as she began to feel buoyed by this new revelation, the bakery owner stepped forward, crossing the threshold with an air of defiance. Sarah's breath hitched, anticipation mingling with anxiety. This encounter was inevitable, a point of collision after which nothing would be the same. Would it dissolve into rivalry, or could it prompt an unexpected understanding? Sarah, the owner's voice was steady but pierced through the tension. I've watched you struggle, and perhaps it's time I share an invitation instead of a challenge. Let's collaborate. A wave of possibilities washed over Sarah, leaving her dizzy with both hope and uncertainty. The stakes had risen exponentially. She stood at a crossroads where her path could lead to collaboration or continued confrontation. With a heart filled with apprehension and promise, Sarah realized she had one final decision to make. Would she welcome this unexpected twist, or would she fight to uphold her independence? In that instant, she understood the true essence of her journey went beyond baking. It was about resilience, open-mindedness, and ultimately, growth. Just as Sarah prepared to respond, the door swung open wide, and a gust of wind carried in an unfamiliar figure. A rousing presence both exhilarating and unsettling. The figure that stepped through the doorway was tall and commanding, exuding an air of self-assuredness that filled the room. Sarah's mind raced as she instinctively dissected the new arrival. Short-cropped hair glimmering under the warm bakery lights, an intense gaze scanning the scene, and a tailored outfit suggestive of someone accustomed to both authority and the finer details of life. Who were they, and what did they want in her space? The bakery owner glided to Sarah's side, her expression shifting from one of rivalry to curiosity. "This is Alex," she introduced, her tone a mix of respect and caution, as if she too was trying to gauge the newcomer's intentions. "They have experience in the culinary industry that could greatly benefit both of us." Alex surveyed the baked goods with an appreciative nod, a small smile forming at the corners of their lips. "You've built something unique here, Sarah," they said, their voice smooth and confident. "But I can sense there's potential for growth. You're on the verge of something remarkable, yet undiscovered." The compliment felt disarming. Sarah's heart raced again, but now the fluttering was less about fear and more about the thrill of unexpected recognition. Alex continued, "Collaboration isn't just about what we can achieve together. It's about the legacy you can create, one that honors your grandmother and expands your identity as a baker." The weight of those words pressed against Sarah's chest. She thought of her grandmother, whose love had been stitched into every recipe, every tattered book, and every warm hug. Could she really honor that legacy by working alongside someone else? Was collaboration the key to transforming her humble bakery into something that could reach even wider horizons? As doubt crept back in, Sarah quickly caught herself, realigning her thoughts. She could still maintain her independence while forming alliances. "What did you have in mind?" she asked, surprised by the assertiveness in her voice. Alex's eyes sparkled with ideas. Imagine hosting joint baking classes that draw in the community, combining your grandmother's traditional recipes with some modern twists. You could create a series dedicated to showcasing not just the pastries, but the stories behind them. The image hung in the air, tantalizing and intimidating. Sharing her space felt like sharing her soul, opening herself up to potential failure or even ridicule. But was there also beauty in that vulnerability? As her mind turned the idea over, another thought hit her. What if she was actually cutting herself off from a deeper exploration of her own talents? You may think of the competition as a rivalry, Alex continued, sensing her hesitation. But what if it's a mutual opportunity instead? Together, you could redefine what this community expects from its bakers. You could become a beacon for creativity, resilience, and growth. The whisper of fear transformed into a growing flame of determination, kindled by Alex's words. Perhaps this was an opportunity to reshape her narrative, not just for her bakery, but for herself. As her heart began to beat in rhythm with the possibilities, she felt an urge to embrace transparency in her craft and her journey. "Well," she said, rolling her shoulders back, "if we're going to do this, it has to be grounded in authenticity. I won't compromise on my vision or my history, and I need to know you're serious about this too." Alex smiled knowingly, their gaze steady. "Trust is vital. Let's see how we mesh our strengths together. Test the waters before diving into deeper commitments." With possibilities swirling around her, Sarah found herself on the brink of an exciting chapter encompassing her creativity, her heritage, and her future. She was ready to leap into this new alliance, but first, there was something essential she needed to share, a story hidden deeply within the folds of her fear and uncertainty. Before she could articulate it, the familiar scent of cinnamon and sugar wafted into the air, reminding her of all that baked her life into one sweet tapestry. Just as she began to gather her thoughts, the door swung open once again, creating a sudden gust that sent a nearby flour bag tumbling to the floor. Sarah turned, anxiety flickering anew. Who would walk in now, and what impact would they have on her budding transformation? The door swung wide, revealing a woman in her late 40s, her hair pulled back into a messy bun, flour dusted on her faded t-shirt. Her eyes widened as they settled on the scene in front of her. The tension in the room shifted palpably, and Sarah felt an immediate sense of unease. Would this unexpected entrance derail everything she had built in the brief exchange with Alex? "Sorry for barging in," the woman exclaimed, her cheerful demeanor juxtaposed against the lingering air of uncertainty. She moved toward the counter, her eyes darting between Sarah and Alex. "I was just passing by and thought I might grab a coffee before my shift. What's going on here?" "Just discussing some ideas for a collaboration," Sarah managed, forcing a smile that felt shaky at best. She was still trying to process what had just unfolded and didn't know how to address the newcomer without revealing her internal conflict. "Collaboration?" The woman's face lit up. "I'm Maya, by the way. I've been coming here ever since you opened. Your pastries remind me of my grandma's. She had a bakery of her own years ago." A wistful look crossed Maya's face as she glanced around the cozy space. "Are you working on something special?" "Actually," Alex interjected, sensing the moment of vulnerability, "we're talking about possibly hosting baking classes, merging traditional and modern techniques." Maya's expression softened into one of understanding. "That sounds incredible. I think it's a wonderful way to celebrate memories. Baking binds us to our histories, doesn't it?" A knot formed in Sarah's stomach. As Maya spoke about her grandmother's bakery, Sarah felt a pang of loss coupled with something deeper. This unknown connection between her and Maya made her question her own intention. Just moments ago, she felt ready to embrace collaboration. Yet now, with the weight of legacy bearing down on her, she couldn't shake the lingering self-doubt. Was she truly prepared to share her space and her grandmother's recipes with others, tying her dreams so closely to new allies? "You seem apprehensive," Alex observed, tilting their head slightly. What's truly at stake for you, Sarah? The question hung in the air, and the weight of it pushed her inward, dissecting her thoughts more rigorously. Here was an opportunity to be more than just a small-town baker or a nostalgic memory keeper. But in granting others access to her journey, would she compromise the very essence of what she stood for? I've always felt it was my responsibility to keep my family's recipes true to their roots, she finally admitted, her voice scarcely above a whisper. Your grandmother's love is in those recipes, Sarah, Maya offered gently. But sharing that love doesn't diminish it. It amplifies it. It grows into something more. The truth in Maya's words stirred emotions within Sarah that she hadn't fully embraced. There was a flicker of inspiration, a thought that maybe this collaboration wouldn't erase her grandmother's connection, but weave it into a bigger tapestry of community and shared joy. But it's scary, she murmured, almost as if conceding defeat. What if I fail? What if people dislike what I create? Failing is part of growing, Alex said, stepping closer. But letting fear stifle your creativity is the real tragedy. You have gifts to share, Sarah. Trust the process. As the three of them stood together amidst the scents of fresh bread and sweet confections, an unexpected alliance began to form. There was an undeniable sense of camaraderie, an interconnectedness grounding her in this moment. Perhaps, just perhaps, she could forge beyond her old definitions of success and creativity. She was surprised to find her heart racing with burgeoning courage rather than dread. But just as she felt the walls of self-doubt starting to crack, the door swung open yet again. A familiar face strolled in, this time with an expression that suggested tensions neither of them were prepared to face. Sarah, the figure said, tension echoing in their voice. We need to talk about everything you've been avoiding. Recognition sparked in Sarah as she turned to face an old acquaintance, John, standing in the doorway with a mixture of determination and unresolved tension etched across his features. They had crossed paths once too often, and every encounter felt like picking at a scab that refused to heal. Now, she replied, disbelief coloring her voice as her mind raced. This wasn't how she envisioned her day. It was supposed to be about potential, about possibilities unfurling like the dough she kneaded each morning. Can't this wait? Maya shifted uneasily, sensing the charged atmosphere as Alex stepped back, their curiosity piqued by the unspoken history between the two. No, it can't. John's voice sharpened with urgency, creating a deliberate barrier between Sarah's nostalgia and this stark reality check. We need to talk about your plans for the bakery. You can't keep ignoring the bigger picture. Her heart sank. What bigger picture? She had finally settled into her autonomy, a place where she could honor her grandmother's legacy while carefully crafting her own future. Is this about the collaboration? She asked, the words tasting bitter in her mouth as they hung between them. Is this going to turn into another lecture? I'm just saying, John pressed, taking a step forward. You have a gift, a talented one, but you're squandering it by holding back. I'm not squandering anything, she snapped, a mixture of irritation and defensive energy bubbling within her. I'm being cautious. Cautious or fearful? John challenged, his gaze piercing. A pang of disquiet echoed inside her. She couldn't deny that fear had kept her from stepping into her full potential, that insecurity had slowed her growth. The realization was unsettling. Life had become a precarious dance of tiptoeing around her own aspirations as well as the shadows of her grandmother's memory. Maya attempted to break the charged silence, extending her hand as if to bridge the gap between them. We were just discussing the upcoming classes, how they can connect people through shared experiences. Classes? Feel-good projects? John scoffed, waving a hand dismissively. When it's your future and your legacy on the line, Sarah, this isn't the time to play it safe. You can't curate your past like a museum exhibit. You need to live it. His words struck like a hammer against her fragile resolve. They echoed in her mind, mingling with the weight of her grandmother's recipes and the fear of disappointing her family. Could she balance those two worlds, the history she cherished and the future she yearned for? "I'm trying to honor my grandmother's legacy," she replied, her voice steadily gaining volume as determination overrode uncertainty. "Her recipes are sacred. By folding them into everyday life, you really honor her," Maya interjected, her voice calm yet firm. In the world she knew, sharing was the breath of life. "You can do that." The swell of support from Maya clashed against John's criticism, leaving Sarah stranded in the middle, grappling with conflicting emotions. It would mean stripping away the layers of her self-imposed restrictions, opening herself to vulnerability. But what if she truly failed? "I won't stand by and watch you limit yourself, Sarah," John continued, ignoring Maya's gentle interjection. "You owe it to yourself to take risks. Since when did preserving memories mean locking them away?" Suddenly everything felt amplified. The warmth of the bakery no longer enveloped her like a comforting hug. It twisted into a constrictive embrace. Sarah found herself longing, craving a release from the shackles of her own indecision. Her heart raced as the rush of self-revelation surged. Perhaps John was right. Regrets over what could have been would loom heavier than the weight of potential failure. Wasn't she already maneuvering through the unknown? Couldn't she weave the fabric of her present with threads from her past? "Maybe," she started slowly, contemplating her next words. "Maybe I'm ready to stop holding back." But before she could finish, another voice broke in. "Sarah, I didn't mean to interrupt, but we need to talk about the orders for next week. I can't manage alone." The momentary pause felt like the air rushing out of a balloon. There, in the swirl of realizations and burgeoning courage, responsibility loomed, threatening to pull her back into the familiar cocoon of avoidance. "Enough talking for today," she said, her chest tightening as she faced her companions. "I need time to think." As her mind whirled with possibilities, uncertainty crackled in the air. The quiet assurance she had felt from the previous conversations now felt tenuous, hanging like a fragile thread. What would she discover about herself when she fully opened the door to her dreams, and what awaited her on the other side? The warmth of the bakery now felt foreign, the scent of fresh bread mingling with an unsettling tension. Sarah stepped back, taking a deep breath to ground herself. The weight of John's words lingered, echoing in her mind as if they had been engraved into her thoughts. She could feel a battle brewing, not of recipe versus recipe, but of her heart and mind pulling her in opposing directions. Maya's gentle voice broke through her spiraling thoughts. "Sarah, let's focus on what we can do today, together. What if we start planning those classes? It could be a way to bring in fresh energy." Classes, teaching, sharing her passion with others, a thought that ignited the flicker of an idea. Yet the specter of fear loomed large, keeping her rooted in uncertainty. Could she really invite others to experience what her grandmother's legacy meant to her? Each recipe harbored precious memories, and now there was an opportunity to share them. But was she ready to risk making herself vulnerable? "Sure, we can plan," Sarah replied hesitantly, attempting a facade of confidence. "But it's not just about the classes. I need to find a way to blend everything without overshadowing what my grandmother built." Maya nodded, encouragement sparkling in her eyes. "Start small. You don't have to reveal everything at once. Just take one step forward. Begin with a recipe that defines you and introduce it as you would to a family gathering." The suggestion rolled around her mind, an echo of her childhood, sitting on the kitchen counter as her grandmother whisked eggs with a practiced hand, teaching Sarah the warmth of sharing something homemade. "What if I host a tasting event? Just a few friends and family to start?" Sarah proposed, a hint of enthusiasm threading through her voice. "I could get their feedback, even share some of the stories behind the recipes." "Yes, that could be the spark you need." Maya's smile widened. "You need to connect to your audience, and they will feel your passion for the recipes, and for your grandmother's spirit." The idea took root, yet doubt still tugged at her. Yes, the tasting could be a profound moment of connection, But what if it flopped? The thought made her stomach clench. Could she bear disappointment again? You can't please everyone, John reminded her, having stepped closer, his tone softer but still firm. But you don't have to aim for perfection. Aim for authenticity. Show up as yourself, flaws and all. That's what builds connection. Sarah felt a flicker of defiance at his words. Wasn't authenticity what she had been burying beneath the weight of expectation? Okay. The word escaped her lips before she had a chance to reconsider. I'm going to do it. I'll organize the tasting. The atmosphere vibrated with a new energy, and a smile broke across Maya's face as she clapped her hands together. This is the first step, Sarah. You are going to transform this space into something magical, just like it was meant to be. With the decision made, a strange exhilaration rushed through her, propelled by an urge that had been stifled for too long. She hadn't just set a plan into motion. She was tearing down layers of self-doubt that had slowly built up over time. As Sarah moved to gather her tools and ingredients, she couldn't shake the feeling that she stood on the precipice of something significant. The bakery was no longer a mere background. It was her platform, a space to redefine success, to honor her past while shaping her future. Yet, lingering shadows of doubt snaked around her thoughts. Was she really ready to share her stories? Could she withstand the scrutiny of her peers and family? What if her grandmother's recipes weren't regarded with the reverence she hoped for? Those questions writhed in her mind as she prepared to make her first public step in this audacious new direction. And perhaps, in some small way, it was also her way to confront the ghosts of her past, those old fears and insecurities that had quashed her voice for too long. The moment she had anticipated so fervently was arriving. But how would it unfold? As she kneaded the dough, blending her grandmother's traditions with her own nuances, she sensed the atmosphere shift once more. Yet the real challenge still lay ahead. The invitation she contemplated sending to her friends felt more than just a call for their presence. It was an open door to the uncharted territories of her identity. And deep down, a question began to form. What if sharing her truth turned out to be the key that unlocked her potential? But a sudden knock on the door jarred her focus. She turned, the excitement of the moment now punctuated by a new tension. What awaited her on the other side? Curiosity piqued her senses as Sarah approached the door, hesitation clinging to her like the flower dust in the air. She opened it slowly, revealing a familiar figure. Mr. Thompson, the owner of the corner grocery store. His smile was warm, but his eyes held a hint of seriousness that immediately set off alarm bells in her mind. "Hey there, Sarah," he said, stepping inside without an invitation, as he often did. "I heard you were planning to do some tasting soon. Thought I'd come see if you need any help." His unexpected arrival stirred a mix of gratitude and unease. She felt the weight of expectations knot in her stomach. This was the moment where she could either hop on the train of support or get derailed by the fear of it all. Thanks, Mr. Thompson. I was just getting started," Sarah replied, her voice faltering slightly. "How did you hear about it?" "Word gets around. This place has a history, and your grandmother's legacy means a lot to our little community," he said, leaning against the counter, glancing over the ingredients she had laid out. "You've got something special here, Sarah. The smell alone tells me that." His words pierced through her layers of self-doubt, sparking a flicker of confidence. It was not just about baking. It was about legacy, about honoring her family. Yet, as he continued talking, new doubts surged through her. Was her endeavor worth the hype he was building? "Thank you. But I don't want to disappoint anyone," she said, her vulnerability surfacing. "What if it doesn't go as planned? It's not just about the recipes, it's my grandmother's memory." "That's where you're missing the mark," Mr. Thompson responded, his gaze steady. "You can't live for their approval. Your grandmother would want you to celebrate what you love, not worry about perfection." His words resonated. The ghost of her grandmother loomed over her, reminding her of their shared moments in the kitchen. But smiling faces weren't guaranteed, and that thought twisted in her mind. Did she have the courage to step into the light of recognition, even if it meant exposing her uncertainties? "I've always been a little afraid of failing," she admitted, the confession tasting bitter but liberating. "What if they don't see what I see in these recipes?" "You won't know until you try. You need to confront that fear head-on," Mr. Thompson replied, his voice firm but kind. "Failure is not the end. It's a step towards growth. Besides, not everyone may appreciate your work, but those who do will connect deeply." As Sarah considered his words, she recognized the truth in them. Each moment of doubt chipped away at the walls she had built around herself. She hesitated, but then felt a rebellious spark ignite within her. Perhaps sharing the recipes was not merely about baking. It was an act of reclaiming a part of herself long neglected. "Okay," she said decisively. "I know what I'll do. I'll make the spritz cookies. It's a recipe my grandmother perfected. I might just start with that." Mr. Thompson grinned, the warmth in his eyes returning. "Now we're talking. That will be a big hit. Just remember, it's about sharing joy, not worrying about the outcome." As he stepped back to leave, that flicker of encouragement rooted itself deeper in her heart. What if every failure brought with it growth? When the door clicked shut behind him, Sarah felt a newfound clarity wash over her. It was time to dismantle the self-imposed confines she had languished within for years. She returned to her ingredients, a determined resolve building within her. The only way to unveil her grandmother's legacy was to embrace her fears and step into her power. The tasting was not merely a presentation of recipes, it was her journey toward authenticity. But as she worked through the motions, kneading the dough with a focused intensity, her mind began to race ahead. If she embraced this challenge, what would that mean for how others perceived her moving forward? The stakes felt higher than ever, and yet a thrilling anticipation underlined her actions. Just as she began to lose herself in the rhythm of the work, a new wave of realization washed over her. This wasn't simply about sharing recipes. It was a pivotal step in uncovering her hidden identity. What other pieces of herself had she kept buried beneath layers of worry and fear? And in that moment, the dawn of self-discovery began illuminating paths previously shrouded in doubt. More was at stake than tradition. It was her very identity seeking to blossom. But amidst that clarity, the tension coiled tighter inside her. What if burying her fear also uncovered something she wasn't prepared to face? The answer simmered just beneath her consciousness, ready to surface and challenge her resolve in ways she could scarcely imagine. What awaited her as she forged ahead? Would she find the courage within to own her legacy completely? As Sarah continued to knead the dough, reflections of her grandmother's laughter and wisdom emerged from the depths of her memory, intertwining with the flour-dusted air around her. Each fold and press resonated with unspoken challenges and silent affirmations. Engrossed in the rhythmic task, she found herself wrestling not only with the ingredients, but with the shadows of her own fears that had lurked in the periphery of her mind for far too long. What if she was wrong? What if her grandmother's love for baking didn't translate to everyone else? The aroma of butter and sugar began to rise, but so too did an anxiety that felt suffocating. She realized this was more than just a recipe. This was a moment that could consolidate her burgeoning identity as a baker, a creator, a person with a voice that could finally be heard. Stepping back for a moment, Sarah breathed deeply, deliberately letting the warm, sweet scents fill her lungs. What did it mean to truly embrace the legacy of her grandmother? Could she transform her fear of scrutiny into a source of strength? In her heightened awareness, she recalled the times her grandmother emphasized the importance of flavor, of joy over judgment. Maybe perfection was not the point. In the growing confidence of her resolve, she set to work on the spritz cookies, each squeeze of the pastry bag serving as a testament to her labor and intent. The joy of creating began to wash over the nagging insecurities, and with it came an exhilarating understanding. This was her manifestation of legacy. Pride surged within her. Yet in the midst of her solitary focus, a quiet voice murmured doubts of its own. It reminded her of how others viewed failure as a measure of worth, how the barking critiques of perfectionists could easily drown out her voice. Was she prepared for the potential backlash? Even small mistakes could amplify old fears, pulling her back to a place of invisible shackles. Taking a moment, Sarah examined the cookies proudly displayed on the cooling rack. This process had pushed her out of her comfort zone, shifting her self-perception incrementally. She recognized that in sharing her vision, her love, she would also inevitably expose her vulnerabilities. Could she withstand the scrutiny of those who might not appreciate her cooking? Would they see her for who she truly was, or would they still only view her through a lens of their own making? As these thoughts flooded through her, her hands trembled slightly, unsure of themselves. This was a risk. Each day in the grocery store, Mr. Thompson's kindness echoed in her mind. It was about sharing joy. Was she ready to celebrate her ancestors with the hum of laughter and camaraderie, or would she let the weight of expectations silence her? A determined spirit flickered back, reminding her that growth required bravery. She owed it not only to her grandmother, but to herself, to step into fullness and not merely front the personas others had built for her. The legacy was hers to wield, a weapon against self-doubt and the fears that loomed like dark clouds. Just then, a knock at the door shattered her concentrated space. Who could that be now? Was it her mind seeking distraction, or was it the fate she had reckoned with that day? Her heart raced. Every fiber of her being wanted to ignore it, to pretend the world outside did not exist. But much like the taste of her cookies would reveal the hidden depth of flavor, perhaps answering the door could unveil something about her future, something she hadn't yet considered but desperately needed. Taking a moment to steady herself, she wiped her hands clean on her apron and inhaled deeply. As she approached the door, a question rippled through her. Would this moment be a new opportunity to connect, to share what she had learned, or a confrontation with her most profound fears? She steadied her resolve, grasped the handle and opened it, preparing for whatever lay beyond. Then, in that instant, the thought glimmered ominously. Was she truly ready for whatever awaited her on the other side, or would the world outside unravel her newfound courage? As the door swung wide, Sarah was met by a familiar face, Jake. His eyes sparkled with excitement, but as he stepped into the bakery, she sensed something deeper beneath his youthful enthusiasm, a shared uncertainty mirrored in her own heart. "Mom, I can't believe you did it. This place looks amazing," he exclaimed, taking in the vibrant decorations and the sweet scent wafting through the air. There, among the flour-dusted counters and glistening pastries, a vision she had long conceived began to take tangible form. "Thanks, honey," she replied, her voice brimming with newfound warmth, the nervous tension that once choked her dissipating like sugar in warm tea. "I'm still figuring it all out, but today feels different. It's exciting." His smile faltered slightly as he leaned against the counter, his youthful exuberance replaced by a flicker of concern. "But what if it doesn't go the way you want? I mean, everyone's been talking about it, but what if they're disappointed?" In that moment, Sarah recognized the reflection of her own fears in Jake's words. Hadn't she dismissed the same nagging doubts? Yet instead of recoiling under the weight of uncertainty, a solid confidence surged within her. She leaned closer, her gaze steady. "Listen, Jake, everything that means something is built on risk. Yes, I'm afraid I might fail, but I'm not going to let that fear dictate my journey anymore. Every pastry I create here is a piece of family history, a testament to hard work, love, and belief." His eyes widened. And what if the others don't see it that way? Then that's their loss. A fire ignited within her, the flicker of self-doubt dimmed in the light of overwhelming purpose. What matters, sweetie, is that I'm forging my own path, carrying our legacy forward into a new era. It won't be perfect, but it will be mine. And I want you to see that it's okay to dream beyond limits. It's not just about my growth, it's about inspiring you. Before Jake could respond, the door opened once again, letting in the energetic buzz of the outside world. Familiar figures from the community entered, friends, acquaintances, even those who had doubted her dream. For a split second, an anxiety jolted through her. What would they think? But this time, she allowed her heart to settle into the rhythm of possibility. As they gathered, Sarah straightened, poised, yet humble. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here to celebrate. This isn't just a bakery. It's a piece of my grandmother's heart extended into the future, she proclaimed, her voice ringing with authentic passion. Today, I want to invite you to not only savor these pastries, but to share in the stories that come with them. With each warm bite, laughter filled the room, and gradually, the air shifted, transforming skepticism into admiration. Patrons indulged in the spritz cookies, their flavors evoking nostalgia, while conversations blossomed into connections. Jake stood nearby, visibly absorbing the palpable energy, watching as the community rallied around his mother. The local bakery owner, his expression now softened by curiosity rather than rivalry, approached after sampling a pastry. "These are good, Sarah," he conceded, respect profoundly grounding his tone. "You've managed to capture something special here." Sarah felt a surge of validation wash over her. In that moment, the weight of her fears shrank under the glow of newfound recognition, and she stood resolute, ready to rise above expectations. By day's end, the tables were empty, save for empty pastry boxes that told stories of shared bites and unforgettable connections. People lingered, chatting and laughing, while Jake found her in the crowd. "See, I told you," he beamed, pride radiating through his voice. "You didn't just bring back the bakery, you brought our family back together." In that instant, Sarah felt the walls she had lived behind dissolve. She had conquered not just doubt, but carved out her identity, built on the legacy of a woman whose spirit lingered in every batter and blend. She had transformed her fear into something palpable, joy wrapped in pastry and community. As she embraced Jake, a thrill pulsed through her. This was the achievement she sought. More than a bakery, it was the recognition of her own strength, deftly woven into the fabric of hope she now carried forward. She watched as everyone exited, leaving behind more than just satisfied appetites. They had ignited dreams of their own, and she knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of her true journey, and perhaps what lay ahead would lead her not just through the kitchen, but deeper within herself, into realms she had yet to explore. With renewed spirit, she turned to the oven, ready to embrace another day of challenges, growth, and connection. Because now she understood. Embracing her legacy meant embracing her future. The power was hers. Now, if you enjoyed this conclusion and want more transformative narratives like Sarah's, you need to subscribe now to the channel. Don't let this moment slip away. Show your support and subscribe immediately. Remember to leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others discover these extraordinary stories. I want to hear from you, so comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your thoughts matter. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let's spread the word about overcoming fears and building legacies together.